Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and we've got two co-hosts this week. First one straight from Lazy Gaming Guys, gaming streaming group. It is Scott. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks. Always fun to be here.
And making his The Reasons I'm Broke debut, because he does also love anime and can relate a lot with Scott and with some of the anime news that came out this week. It's my coworker. I've mentioned him in the last couple of episodes. It's Sam. Welcome on, Sam.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to get into some of this reasons we're broke stuff.
If this is your very first episode, the way we format the show is we go through a block of news, and then we end it with the Brocat block, which is what Scott, Sam, and I have been doing since you last heard us, or just what we've been doing recently, what we've been watching. So with all of that out of the way, let's jump right in and explore sector number 524. Rob Liefeld news does not make it too often on this show, especially since he and I have butted heads in the past on Twitter, but he does have an upcoming remastered version of Brigade, and he is, of course, Image Comics' co-founder. He wants to roll out a totally new property in Airborne. Liefeld wants to tell the story of a world under the heel of a superpowered being, answering once again the popular question, what if Superman chose to rule rather than to serve? So we're getting this story again, and from Rob Liefeld of all people.
I don't know if anyone at this point is clamoring for more of these evil Superman stories, but I definitely don't think anyone is clamoring for a Rob Liefeld written What If Superman Was Evil story. I could be wrong. I know, like, for a lot of new comic book readers, like when you first start getting in, there's so much Liefeld stuff that a lot of people do pick him up at first. So maybe that's more who this is catered to, is like the casual entry level reader. But I don't think any hardcore DC fans or even Image comic fans at this point are super excited for a Rob Liefeld led Injustice or Superman Red Sun, essentially, or The Boys, which is probably what this will be.
It's one of those things that in order to do this kind of story at this point, you've got to be a very good writer and take a nuanced take on it or some kind of new view on it. And I don't believe Liefeld is the person that's going to give that nuanced take or, tell a slightly different story that's going to be compelling. It's probably going to be a paint by the numbers type of story with this situation.
I think the question we all have is Liefeld going to draw feet on the evil Superman? That's what we all really want to know here.
If he does, they better look evil. Evil looking feet or something.
Unclipped toenails for sure.
The people that are going to buy this, I feel like his fan base is just shrinking more and more. It seems like people that jumped in maybe late 80s and definitely in the 90s, and not a lot of them have stuck around. He tried to create a new hero for Marvel that basically looked like Deadpool, and this was 4 years ago, I want to say, and did not take off. People were not about it. The thing that I regret him doing well on, 2 years ago, he did a Snake Eyes series for Image. And it did extremely well, but not because of Liefeld, but because it's fucking Snake Eyes. People love the character. So that's one of those things where I feel like Image went, hey, the last thing he made did pretty well. So yeah, what do you want to do? Airborne? Yeah, let's give it a shot. And it's like, no, that only did well because it's fucking Snake Eyes. Stop giving this guy a book. But he's a co-founder. It's kind of like they sort of have to, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's a huge part of it too, is I think Image is aware that it looks bad if they don't let him do a book when he wants to, because like you said, he is a co-founder. I think if that were not the case, this would not be getting picked up, because Image has done very well over the last few years, and I don't think they need a story that's been done what feels like 1,000 times at this point in their repertoire. even if it does have a massive creator behind it, when that creator is not the most well received in the comic book community.
Yeah, it's pretty much like they should have just gone, oh, you want to make a comic, and handed him some crayons and a coloring book, and we'd all be okay. Like he can make his little comic in his own little world and stuff. But no, I feel like to your point, they thought, oh, well, he's a co-founder, he's made Snake Eyes, but Snake Eyes, not only did it sell because people love the character, they're starving for that kind of comic. Like G.I. Joe comics don't get comics anymore. Like that series just doesn't really happen anymore. So anything with Snake Eyes, they're automatically like, well, maybe this will get us more G.I. Joe in the future. So even if they thought it was crap, they were going to buy it because they're hoping it'll show, see, we like Snake Eyes. And then Image looked at it and goes, see, they like Liefeld.
Yeah, I definitely think they misinterpreted the return on the revenue and the critical response on that. I don't think it was anyone was like, oh my God, Liefeld's amazing. I think it was finally we got a decent Snake Eyes comic, which, like you said, Daniel, it's like one of the most beloved, if not the single most beloved G.I. Joe character. It was going to do well regardless.
Before we move on to some Studio Ghibli news, what are each of your favorite Rob Liefeld meme panels or covers?
For me, it's definitely the huge chested Captain America. For a while, people were photoshopping Chris Evans in First Avenger with the Liefeld chest. I think that one is incredible.
Yeah, I actually have to agree because of the memes.
Yeah.
Well, they showed.
What about yours?
That's definitely one of my favorites. I always like the scrunched faces that he always does on all the males. Like, it's just no eyeballs and just the teeth always showing. It's the exact same fucking expression on all of them. But with Elon Musk, who recently was at some boat party and he was shirtless, people were like, oh shit, Rob Liefeld was right. Like, that is actually correct. He looks like
That's
Captain
real
America.
Human anatomy.
Yeah.
We misunderstood him the whole time. He's a misunderstood genius. We all got to buy this book now.
Yeah, the only dude he had ever seen shirtless just happened to be Elon Musk. Like, who knew?
Well, like I mentioned, we do have some Ghibli news here, as according to Variety, G-Kids has struck a deal to bring these films to digital rental platforms such as Vudu, Apple TV, and more. So the licensor, which has a long history with Ghibli, plans to rent films out starting at $4.99. So they will all come in HD, with most of the titles coming with Japanese and English audio. And this is the first time that Ghibli films have been made available for digital rental. Right now, Studio Ghibli movies are currently available to stream exclusively on HBO Max. And I think that with HBO Max going away next summer, we're going to start seeing more of these kinds of deals with existing properties. It'll probably stay streaming until next summer, and then I wouldn't be shocked if someone else then picked up the streaming rights.
I wouldn't be surprised either at that point. In all honesty, I figure it's probably going to be potentially Disney Plus that picks it up, since Disney was the distributor for the actual home video releases of Ghibli and G-Kids for a while. So it makes sense that they might pick it up. But it could be something like Amazon, Netflix, or heck, it might be pieced out to a bunch of different ones. But it's really cool that you can actually digitally rent these movies now. I mean, if you don't have HBO Max, it is an option, or if HBO Max isn't available in your area, because I think some countries still don't have it, it at least gives different ways. Or if you just wanted to watch one of the movies, you don't have to pay for a whole subscription in order to do that. And I like that it's available in both English and Japanese. I don't feel like I don't feel the English dubs are amazing in the Ghibli movies, mostly because they just tried to find celebrities at the time that to just throw in for celebrity name, but they're not terrible dubs. And it's nice for people to have options on some of these. It's when you only get an English version that's the problem, in my opinion. Options are fine.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. This is just another reason that I am kind of bummed about the HBO Max going away, because it is awesome that you can just stream all of them in one place right now. But with that going away, at least now people still have the option to see them, because I know Netflix Japan just has these constantly for streaming, but until HBO Max got them, there was no good way to watch them in the US other than to buy the physical copies, which, as Scott said, were originally distributed by Disney, so they never go down in price. So if you want to buy the whole collection, it is a lot of money for most people. So I'm definitely glad that they're going to have the option to rent them, which I think is a good middle ground too. Like, I know some people are not super into having all of these different streaming services, and for good reason. It can get costly for a lot of people, because I do think what will happen after HBO Max is dissolved, so to speak, is they're going to probably parcel these out to different streaming places. But I think it's good to give people the option to rent. That way you're paying a very nominal amount of money, and you get to watch them whenever you want until your rental period is up. So I think that's a really both good option for the consumer and smart on the distribution half, because they do get to rake in some extra money.
I'm going to have to really work on this list because I have almost all of the Ghibli films on my HBO Max list. I don't want to have to rent them for $5, especially if I had access to them all these years and I just didn't watch them all. So now I'm like, okay, I really got to go through these. I was just telling you that I went through Porco Rosso and I finished that one, and now I've got to keep going through my list. I think I have like 10 films still that I got to watch, and I've seen the important ones. I rewatched Howl's Moving Castle, which was great. But which movies would you guys say, if I haven't seen, are like the two that you'd say definitely watch these?
I know for me, you've already watched one of them, which is Princess Mononoke. I think for most people, they're going to say that and Spirited Away are the two main ones. Maybe Howl's Moving Castle instead of Mononoke, depending on who you ask. But I would say those three for sure are what most people are going to say are the most seminal.
For me, since I know you've already watched Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, I actually really recommend my newest favorite Ghibli movie, which is Lupin III: The Castle of Cagliostro.
Is that on there?
Since I've watched that. Yeah, that was Miyazaki's first movie.
Yeah, it is. Wow. It is amazing.
It's by far my favorite now, along with Spirited Away. And then I also recommend Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, if you haven't seen that.
Yeah, I have not seen that one, and now I've got to see Lupin as well.
Yeah.
It's not an answer I expected.
I also personally like, this is a little more divisive one, but The Wind Rises, which is one of the more recent ones he's done. Have you checked that out already?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters when they did the limited release, and then I bought it on Blu-ray as soon as they came out. It's incredibly sad, but really good.
Yeah, and I do really like seeing Miyazaki do something different in telling a true-to-life event story and still putting his own, like, very whimsical spin on it, even though it is a very sad and devastating story, obviously.
Wasn't that his son that did that one? Was it actually Miyazaki?
You may be right about that. That may have been his son. I know he's always still involved in anything his son works on, but you may be right on that one. Okay. It's still a great Ghibli movie to check out, though, if anyone listening hasn't seen it.
Looks like he did direct and screenplay it.
Okay,
you're right.
Okay,
yeah, that one is awesome. You've seen that one, right, Scott? Too?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters as well.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Any of the Ghibli movies that have been in recent years, for the most part, I've gone and seen in theaters, except for that earwig one or whatever.
Earwig and the Angry. No, that's a different. Yeah, Earwig and the Angry Itch, right?
It came out under the Ghibli logo.
Yeah. That one is only on Netflix, if I remember.
No, it's on HBO Max.
It is. Okay.
The G-Kids thing is also just a weird thing because Evangelion is released under G-Kids as well.
Yeah, it's a very strange hodgepodge of stuff.
I always thought it was just Ghibli for a long time, and now it's slowly becoming a bunch of other things.
Yeah, I feel like at this point they're just kind of getting into anything that has like a very staggered Western release or anything, to where it's like, oh, this is not super available for people. We'll get into it, but it's definitely an odd collection of stuff.
Well, hopefully more Ghibli films do make it to theaters as they continue to develop it. Maybe not Hayao, because he's retired for like the 4th time, I think.
He'll be back.
Yeah,
I think he's already working on something else.
there you go.
He's always saying he's retiring, and then he's like, I have a new film.
He's like Kojima.
Exactly. Exactly. So a lot of people came out to theaters to watch this anime. It is Dragon Ball Super Superhero, which has now become the 5th highest grossing anime film of all time. So far, it has made over 30 million, making it more profitable than Dragon Ball Super Broly. So last week we covered the success of the film, but now it has climbed to that number 5 spot. And it's behind, starting from 1 through 5, it's behind Pokemon the first movie, Demon Slayer the movie Mugen Train, Pokemon the movie 2000, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and now Dragon Ball Super Superhero. So it looks like it's got the potential to continue to climb as it continues its theatrical run.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it does. I don't know if it will climb all the way to that top spot, just because of the way anime movies are released now versus when Pokemon the first movie came out, because that was just a normal theater movie. Whereas nowadays with anime movies, it's select nights for X amount of days. So there's a limited number of viewings, period. So the potential is very limited already to start, unless they add more days and things like that. But I could see it at least getting up to maybe number 2 with Mugen Train, since Mugen Train also had the staggered release and things of that nature with modern anime movies.
So when they're talking about all time, is it talking domestic only or worldwide? Because I remember
That
Demon
is
Slayer.
domestic.
Okay, domestic only. All right, because I was going to say there's no way it tops Demon Slayer, especially since it was the highest grossing in Japan, not just anime, but film of all time. But yeah, maybe in domestically it could, you were saying it could hit that number 2 spot?
I think it has a chance. I don't think it'll ever reach Pokemon the first movie's box office.
No.
If I'm going to be honest. And again, that's mostly due to the fact of how anime movies are released nowadays versus back when Pokemon the first movie came out.
I definitely agree with you. I don't think it'll necessarily make it to number 1, but I do think this is a good indicator that people are still wanting to go to the movies to watch these huge anime releases. I mean, this movie in general did not get very good marketing, and it's still doing this well. So that really tells you there's still a huge audience for people to watch. Obviously, a Dragon Ball movie in the theater, but I think like these larger anime titles in general still have a huge audience of people that will pay to go see it in a movie theater.
Well, I'll tell you, when Pokemon the first movie came out, I went to the local theater. It was a budget theater, and it was the cheapest tickets. Maybe for back then, it would have been maybe $6 if you account for inflation, but at that time, it was $2 a ticket. So my brother and I would go. I saw that movie 5 times, and they had cards that they still gave away. So I was able to go in, watch the Pokemon movie again, and collect another set of those little cards that they gave out. So that kind of shit helped keep Pokemon the movie at the top spot, because, people were going in multiple times to get cards.
Oh, I remember them selling like shoes at the shoe store across the movie theater that my mom and I went to, with like little side inserts of the Pokemon that appeared exclusively for the first time in that movie. Like, the marketing for that movie was fucking insane.
And it was at the hype of Pokemania, like the actual hype.
Oh yeah,
so
100%.
It was going to be the biggest thing. I mean, I remember watching that movie like 3 or 4 times in theaters.
I was at the age where if you didn't see that in the theater, you were a loser. Like, you were getting picked on at school. It's the opposite of how it works later on, right? Because, later on you bring your Pokemon cards to school and people shove you in a locker. But when it was first going, like, if you were not seeing this the opening weekend, it was going to get spoiled for you and you were going to get made fun of. So it was definitely this insane snapshot in history.
See, and it works out that all 3 of us are around the same age, because anyone much younger would be like, I saw that on streaming.
Yeah, exactly. What's a movie theater? What's a VHS? Like, yeah, that's how I had to watch this shit.
Just as in case anyone was curious what number Dragon Ball Z has to get to, it looks like for US it would be 85 million to top Pokemon the first movie.
And right now it's got 30 million. Wow.
44,000.
It's definitely not getting there. Normally the opening weekends are when these movies make the most money,
Yeah, and again, they only have X amount of showings
Mhm.
for it, which are vastly fewer than a normal movie amount of showings.
Good on Dragon Ball Superhero though, because like Sam was saying, minimal marketing, so their cost is probably pretty low when it's all said and done. So their profit margins are probably a lot higher than some of their previous, like Broly coming out, and it's making more than Broly. Probably has less marketing than Broly, simply because Goku and Vegeta are not the stars of this movie, and people still came out for it. The different animation to it kind of. I know it bugged me and I didn't really get used to it, but it wasn't enough to ruin the movie for me. But that was a big risk for it, and it didn't matter. Fans are there, and they were very happy. My theater was very animated, and there was a lot of fan service for them that made the movie truly for fans of Gohan and Piccolo. So I think it just hit all the right notes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was thinking the exact same thing. I think the lack of marketing was definitely somewhat intentional because, like you said, they're trying this new animation style. Goku and Vegeta are barely in it, and I think Toei was kind of like, this movie flops, we get to just wash our hands of it. We're not going to push it, and then it just exceeds everyone's expectations. So I think had it had a lot of marketing, we could be looking at this movie definitely climbing up to the number 2 spot, if not, looking close to edge out Pokemon. But who's to say? I mean, Dragon Ball's a massive property, so
Yeah, Dragon Ball is a beast in general. It was always going to make at least its money back. Like, it was always going to be a profitable movie to put out, unless they just absolutely did everything they could to sabotage it.
right.
People were going to go watch that in droves, and were going to really at least find something enjoyable about it.
Before we move on to some Sandman news, with the success of Superhero, for their next Dragon Ball project, let's assume it is a movie, that we're going to get another film, whatever the next theatrical release would be. Do you think that they will now take what they learned from this and go, okay, maybe we should pump some extra marketing into the next one and see how much higher they can go, given the confidence they now have behind Superhero and Broly?
I think it would be silly for them not to. Just if you can make this much money just hand over fist without even trying, why would you not put some extra oomph behind it and see just how high you can get the returns on the next one?
See, I would almost say don't bother, because people are going to go see it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you maybe throw a few ads here and there on some anime sites, which even Superhero had. Like, you go on Crunchyroll or Anime News Network, you'd see the banners and stuff like that for release dates. You throw some of that in there. But instead, what I would do in order to get profits up is actually release it as a full movie, like where it just has normal showings,
Normal
things like that,
yeah.
so that you can then have more showings, which means more profit, and see how well Dragon Ball can do as a normal release. And that way, if it does well, well, going forward, we can just pop this out in theaters as a normal movie, and that'd be okay. And what I would do is just pop the dub out as a normal movie and then have limited screenings of the subs, since I don't think most US fans watch the subs of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that's something Sam has mentioned before, where I think, Sam, you mainly watch sub, but for Dragon Ball, since you grew up on those voices, you wanted to see this with the English voice actors, right?
Yeah, exactly. And thankfully I did end up getting in to see the dubbed version. And yeah, mostly, especially with the newer seasonal stuff, which Scott and I will, I'm sure, get into later. I almost always watch subbed. One, I don't necessarily want to wait for the dub because it tends to be an episode or two behind, but also it tends to lean heavily in one direction or the other with newer stuff. It's either amazing or I don't even know if I would say amazing. It's either really good or just god awful. But anything that I grew up on, Dragon Ball especially, I want to hear it the way that I'm used to, which was the English dub. So
Goku's Japanese voice, like, God bless her, but my God, like, I cannot take Goku seriously.
yeah, it's a very high pitched scream.
Yeah. So again, that's why I would just release it dubbed as a movie, and then have limited screenings of the Japanese for anyone that wants to watch the sub. They can watch it as a limited screening.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you on that. I think that's where they're, if I had to take a guess without looking it up, they're probably raking in most of their US money from dub screenings.
I would imagine.
Another property that was almost seen in theaters as a film is The Sandman. And recently, in an interview with Rolling Stone, writer Neil Gaiman detailed the script that was written for this movie as spearheaded by the famous John Peters. He said, quote, Lucifer, Morpheus, and the Corinthian were identical triplets. They were a family of identical brothers, and it was all a race to see who could get the ruby, the helm, and the bag of sand before midnight on 1999, before the new millennium started, because whoever got it would be the winner. That was the plot, end quote. That doesn't sound like Sandman to me.
No, it does not. It's interesting because Neil has said time and time again that he's blocked a bunch of these ideas because he's very protective of the property and wants to see it done well. This just sounds like a fever dream to me.
Yeah.
It sounds very 90s to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a 90s kids movie or tweens movie. And that's it. That it's just oh yeah, they're going on this like scavenger hunt for these mythical items and everything else, and whoever gets it will be the winner. And what does the winner mean? Like,
Right.
You know,
do they
the winner.
become the Sandman? Like,
There you go. I have now become the Sandman. Roll credits.
yes.
And then everyone leaves the film thinking they were going to see a spin-off about a Spider-Man villain, and it's just more confusion.
I heard that Neil purposefully released this script so that it would not get made. Like, he has sabotaged a couple of those projects simply for that.
Yeah.
That's probably one of them. And one of the ideas in another interview with Entertainment Weekly, Neil revealed that legendary pop singer Michael Jackson called Warner Brothers and let them know that he wanted to play the character. Neil said, quote, by 1996, I was being taken to Warner's, where the then president of WB sat me down and told me that Michael Jackson had phoned him the day before and asked him if he could star as Morpheus in The Sandman. So there was a lot of interest in this, and they knew that it was one of the crown jewels. And what did I think? And I was like, ooh, end quote. So he's down for some Michael Jackson Sandman.
I would have paid to watch that. I mean, it sounds like the most 90s of 90s things you could give me, but I would love to see a moonwalking, crotch-grabbing sand. I think that would have been incredible.
I mean, you never know. He might have been as iconic as David Bowie in Labyrinth.
That's
Like,
true.
Exactly.
Holy
just
shit, I
never
like
got the
that
chance.
universe. I want that universe now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to
have
cross
people
over.
arguing which was better, Michael Jackson Morpheus or David Bowie as the Goblin King.
Out of
Love
all of the like leaked script ideas I've heard that have gotten canceled, this definitely sounds the most insane, but also probably the most amusing. Like, I used to think George Miller's leaked, Justice League casting was incredible, but this is absolutely god tier.
And we know he could do it. I don't know if you've been on Captain EO, Sam, but I know Scott and I have, and you can watch it on YouTube, the whole show. And it's like, I would watch a whole hour and a half of this, let alone a Sandman,
yeah.
Michael Jackson. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Sandman's first season is currently streaming on Netflix, the one that Neil is very happy with. And it sounds like they're on track to do a season 2 if numbers continue to climb in the first 28 days. I know a lot of people were worried over the recent Warner Brothers Discovery cancellation as to how it would affect the gaming market. And in an interview with Axios, WB Games head David Haddad spoke about the publisher's future amid the merger. He told Axios that the division is profitable, has experienced no layoffs, and no projects have been canceled. WB Games recently announced the Wonder Woman game at December's Game Awards, and Ed Boon has been hinting on Twitter at the next Mortal Kombat or Injustice game. So far it seems like there's no problems on the gaming division side.
I'm happy about. Like, I've been looking forward to things like the Wonder Woman game sounds kind of cool. And I love the Injustice series. So, like, you put out one, although with Injustice, I'll probably not pick it up day one, just like Mortal
Mm-hmm.
Kombat, and I'll wait until the Game of the Year or whatever edition comes out with all the DLC for $40 instead of the 60 and then season passes. But
Yes. So 80 total.
like, I
usually.
still love the game series and will purchase them at some point.
Yeah, I think this is really good news for gaming fans, and Ed Boon essentially has his own fan base at this point. It's definitely not shocking to me. I mean, I was one of the people back when you could still get a game at midnight, went and picked up the first Injustice game for a midnight release, and it was packed out. So it makes sense to me that they're not going to touch this division. It's got to be just insanely profitable. And I know the first game was made on like for a AAA title, a very small budget, and just raked in a ton of money, if I remember. So this is not shocking to me.
Of course, things could change in the next year, but it sounds like he's pretty confident as to the projects. I feel like now would be the time to lay off a lot of people if they had that in the cards. But I know for me, Injustice, we trust them by now. It's going to be awesome. Mortal Kombat has a great track record, and Wonder Woman looks to be so different from any previous superhero game, at least, that you could at least take it for what it is and say, they tried something different if it ends up not working out, but it does look like it has a decent studio behind it.
Good opportunity for them to test the waters with some of the other stuff that isn't just Arkham style, because the Arkham series has been so popular and it did so well that they've just been trying to kind of copy that formula. So it'd be nice to have it something a little different to test. Okay, can a DC game outside of the Arkham formula work? We'll see that with Gotham Knights, and we'll also see that with the new Wonder Woman.
And also Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking forward to that one. Like, just because of the studio behind it.
Right.
Like, I trust them. So I think it's going to be... I think there's some really good games coming up from the DC side of things.
This is the part where we circle back to the beginning, and a week from now we find out that this is being the next Injustice is scripted by Rob Liefeld, and this studio goes under and the week following.
Maybe if it were the old WB regime, I'd believe you for sure.
Oh yeah, no, that's the last topic was a fever dream. This one's a nightmare. If that were to happen.
We have some other DC news this week, as during a recent interview with Vanity Fair, Danny DeVito shared his thoughts on Colin Farrell's Penguin from the Pattinson movie. He said, quote, "I love Colin. He's a terrific guy. My Penguin was better. It's my opinion. Good man, though. Colin's a good guy." End quote. I have not seen the Pattinson. I don't know if Scott has seen it, but I know, Sam, you have. How would you compare those two Penguins?
I mean, I spoke to you about this before. I don't disagree with Danny DeVito at all. I never disagree with him. He's amazing. But it's such a massive difference too, and it's good to see that Danny DeVito I think was having a little fun with Colin too, which is funny given the massive divide between fans of those two movies, I think. But I definitely would have said, like, I think Danny DeVito's Penguin is such an interesting take on it. It is just different enough from the comic books to where if you had read a ton of the comics and you went and watched that movie, it didn't feel contrived or stale. He added, he changed up his backstory quite a bit, and he was this almost like gothic horror villain.
Right.
And it just fit the tone of that movie so well. Colin, I do think he does a good job in that movie, but they do what I think a lot of these post Dark Knight Batman properties are trying to do, where it's just like, how do we tie this character back into the mafia and try and make him feel grounded? Which, oddly enough, it ends up having the opposite effect with that character. For better or worse, I do think Colin's Penguin in that movie, it almost feels like he's in another film. Like they relate him back to Maroni story-wise, but he behaves so differently than everyone else that you're just like, What movie did they tell Colin he was auditioning for? Because he's in a completely different one.
Everything I've seen from Colin Farrell's Penguin, just the short clips, it does feel like he's just another mobster. It doesn't scream Penguin to me. That's one of the issues I did have.
Yeah.
With the bits that I've seen. So that's the one thing that it sounds a little disappointing. And he's supposed to have his own HBO Max series is what they were doing. I don't know if that's canceled now. It should be. I don't know if it is, but if they move forward with it, I just don't see how that's going to work out too well, especially since he doesn't seem to really carve his own path into the Penguin role. And it sounds like he sort of plays it a little bit more generic. I mean, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong.
No, that's absolutely correct. And I was going to ask you if you knew if that Penguin series had gotten the axe or not, because I don't even think it has anything to do with that particular character, but with very few exceptions, whenever DC's like, oh, this villain screen tested well, let's give him his own spinoff. They never succeed. And that it's the same in actual comics most of the time. Like, nobody reads these villain spinoffs. They get canceled after 6 issues. And I just don't know why they keep trying this thing of like, oh, people liked this villain. It's like, well, they like the villain in relation to the hero on screen. It's not enough for them to carry their own series.
Yeah, and that recently happened with Punchline. Not a character that can carry her own series, was extremely popular with the resellers, but that's all that character ended up being. She's not the next Harley Quinn, as they kept saying. She's the next Harley Quinn. Better pick her up. Nope, not the case.
No, that was all marketing ploy.
Absolutely.
But yeah. It is interesting, though, that Danny DeVito just, like, drops truth bombs in the middle of his conversation. Just like, I like the guy, but, he didn't even dress up like a penguin, didn't make penguin bombs, eat fish. Like, what the hell?
He had all the fingers. I don't know where they were going with this one.
Yeah.
No one's nose got bitten off.
Penguin?
Yeah.
Like,
he's not making sexually suggestive remarks in an otherwise, like, pretty innocuous movie. What was Colin doing here?
Yeah, like, it's crazy. He's just some dude in a business suit.
We're selling Happy Meals of this movie, and we got Penguin going, just the pussy I've been looking for.
Oh, no. I think she's that one to tuna fish. We'll relate it back to the filet of fish sandwich. It's fine.
We've got a little bit of Zack Snyder news, as this one has taken Twitter a storm. There's a bunch of streams going on about it, and I think it's because of the blatant transparency of it. I don't think anyone really took this article seriously. According to Variety, quote, studio insiders have lamented that Zack Snyder's Justice League never should have happened, end quote, in part because the release of the film only further excited the fandom to want to see the Snyderverse and Snyder's previously planned sequels and spin-offs. The article goes on to say that it divided the fan base even more, and this is all according to studio executives or insiders at Warner Brothers Discovery. And by now, people are like, okay, so Hamada, the people that got fired, Hamada, Diane Nelson, Ann Sarnoff, and Toby Emmerich probably fed this inside. But everyone immediately was like, so Warner Brothers Discovery does the one good thing in the last, or not, it wasn't WBD at that time. It was just Warner Brothers, completely different staff. But they make the one good decision over the last 4 years of, okay, let's release this. And fans are like, we love it. We want more of it. And they're like, oh, we shouldn't have released this. Like, this is business 101.
Yeah, I think the most egregious thing here is like demeaning a built-in fan base. Like, even if you think that privately, don't broadcast that to millions of people. It's such a bad look.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm just like, why would you regret? Because, I mean, it made money. Like, why would you regret releasing it? Now, if they wanted to claim that, okay, we should have mentioned at the beginning that it's only going to be this movie stuff, okay, but still, don't regret releasing this thing. Like, you made money off of it. You made a fan base very happy off of it. Why would you regret that? Like, there's no reason to regret that. That was a good decision.
This is probably, like Daniel said, probably, if I had to guess, some of the previous staff just being all out of, that
are like, oh, well, screw them. We're angry at them because they want to blame you all for getting them fired and everything else. And it's like, no, not really. Like, the Snyder Cut people didn't get you fired.
No, certainly not.
Zaslav would have probably cut y'all anyway.
Yeah, we're not the ones that released the pedo squad. We're not the ones that gave away half of the profit to the Joker to China. We're not the ones who released a Batman movie that underperformed, which is insane to say. It's just like, no, we didn't do these things. We're supporting the thing. We're voting with our dollar, and it's the Snyderverse. I think it is an ego thing where they were wrong about Zack Snyder's Justice League, and they don't want to be wrong about it, and they clearly are from a financial standpoint and from a trending standpoint. It's the most tweeted about film out of any of Warner Brothers' category or catalog of films of all time. And it's just like, look, just admit you're wrong. And we were telling them for years, it's okay to say you're wrong. You're wrong, and let's move in this direction. They didn't want to do that, though, and now they have no jobs. That's just the way things turned out, unfortunately. And any other studio, I'm sure Disney, who, I have problems with their MCU, but even them, I'm sure would go, oh, people want more of this? Yeah, let's make money and release Justice League 2 and 3. Why not?
Well, and that's the whole thing. Like, that's one business decision of Disney that you can love it or you could hate it, but when they're like, oh, this makes money, like, beat that horse till it's dead.
Right.
Like, milk it dry and then we'll move on. Like, versus other studios apparently are like, oh, that made money? Nah, we'll leave that alone for a while.
I think something the studios really need to realize is with these comic book movies, which it's so oversaturated thanks to Marvel, right? Like, everyone is getting superhero fatigue. If you have a fan base that's saying, this is what we want, give it to us, I don't know, maybe listen to them, considering like your average comic book reader knows so much more about, I think, that side of the industry, not business necessarily, but what works in a superhero movie so much more than any of the executives at your studio. You should maybe go with them at least once in a while. I'm not saying cater every single thing to every fan demand, but when you have a movement that huge and you have a built-in money-making machine, the whole reason you got into it is to make money. Why are you turning it away at the door like that?
Even if you don't want to release it as movies, have him work with a comic book artist and release them as comic books, and go, okay, well, we're not going to put in the budget to make the movies of it, but here's a comic book adaptation that he's assisting on to work with a comic book artist. So he's writing it and kind of, maybe paneling some stuff out for some shots, and do that and see, okay, that there's at least something instead of just hiding all of the scripts.
I did hear that initially that might have been one of the propositions from Warner Brothers to Zack, and he didn't compromise. He refused. He was like, no, I want to tell the story on the big screen. And it was a big risk because they could have gone, okay, well, that was your chance. But instead, the fire continued and the demand continued, and they were like, okay, fine, here's $70 million.
Yeah, I was
yeah, but I can see it for the sequels since they hadn't filmed anything for it. It would be a lot more. And I don't know if they propositioned it for the sequel stuff or just for his original Justice League. Because I can understand him not compromising on the original one, but for the sequels, it's like, well, nothing's filmed for it yet or anything else. So this would be maybe a better compromise, or even just releasing the scripts so that fans can at least read it and enjoy it.
And then demand some more. Like, holy shit, this was going to happen. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, if the demand is that high, then maybe that should be their barometer, like let the scripts out. And if fans really take to it, I don't know, maybe make the movie. I was going to suggest, cancel the Penguin show and just give Zack Snyder a mini series to tell these stories, or maxi series, whatever you want to call it. But that you brought up a good point, Daniel. I think the way he probably, if I had to guess, wants to shoot them, it might not translate super well to smaller screen aspects.
Plus, we know that Zaslav has gone real hard on, we want big screen releases. We don't want series.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So Zack right now is currently filming Rebel Moon 1 and 2, while Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck have signed back on for more DC movies. The latest rumor I saw today is that they got juicy contracts for multi-picture deals. Zack has still not signed on to any movies that we know of currently, and maybe that's a conflict with Netflix where they can't announce those things until he's done with filming Rebel Moon 1 and 2? I'm not too sure, or maybe they never get him back, but we will cover it. I'm sure something else will break sometime this weekend that we'll cover on next week's show. Another relationship that the old regime ended up destroying was that with Legendary Entertainment. Obviously, Nolan is no longer with Warner Brothers. He's now doing films for Universal. But Legendary Entertainment is considering making a partnership with a new studio after their most recent deal with Warner Brothers Discovery has recently expired. Reports from the Ankler indicated that both Sony Pictures and Paramount Pictures are in the mix to do a deal, with Sony currently eyed as the frontrunner, so they're probably offering the most money. Legendary was previously partnered with Warner Brothers from 2005 to 2014 before returning to their partnership in 2020. It is speculated that they can re-up with Warner Brothers again, but the friction between the two studios when it came to Godzilla vs. Kong and then between Nolan and WB over Tenet may be what ultimately ends that partnership. So currently we've got their upcoming projects, sequel to Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong, Enola Holmes 2, A Christmas Story Christmas, a reboot to The Toxic Avenger, Duke Nukem, and Gundam, as well as an adaptation to God Country. So a lot of properties on there and a lot of money that could be potentially made, but I don't know if it's money that Warner Brothers Discovery has currently to sign someone like Legendary back on.
Yeah, I mean, there's money to be made, but I think that it's going to be either Sony or Paramount that gets it, just because, to your point, there's too much friction now between them and WB. You know, it's a matter of, yes, there is a new regime, but will Legendary look at that and go, yeah, let's try it, you know, and go back to them? Or are they just going to, you know what, these people are offering more money, we're just going to go partner with them and see how that works out and move on?
Partially kidding, partially not. I'm kind of surprised Disney's not trying to get in on this at this point, just because I think they want to own everything. But yeah, I definitely think this is probably Sony's game to lose at this point. This is pretty shocking, though. I mean, I'm sure it comes down to bottom line dollars and cents, but you know, Legendary had a really good run with Warner Brothers, so I'm kind of surprised they're letting it go. But like you said, Daniel, this might just be money that they cannot afford to keep shelling out at this point. And with the success, that contract might get more and more expensive as time goes on. I'm not sure.
The one question I have is, so Dune 2 and Godzilla vs. Kong 2, because all these projects are in development now, we know they're filming Godzilla vs. Kong 2.
Right.
Does that mean that these are the last of the Warner Brothers deals that are going to release under them, or is it potentially a Paramount Picture Presents Dune 2 type of deal that we're seeing? Like, that's the one question I have is, it's got to be Warner Brothers, right? They would have already put their money in greenlight these.
Yeah, I was going to say, Warner Brothers would have already put their money into these projects at this point. Like, part of their filming budget would already be from Warner Brothers money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would figure that those would just be like, okay, we'll finish up these projects for you, and then that's fully it.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do see one of these films maybe on the chopping block, though. I mean, it's hard
Avenger,
to say.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know anyone that's like, oh man, I love the original so much, I really need a remake of that. I can see them cutting that film before it actually hits its release. I could be very wrong. That movie could get a massive marketing push and it becomes like, you know, the surprise hit of whatever year it comes out in. I just think if you're going to cut one for cost reasons, that's definitely the one to go for.
As long as they don't cut Kong or Godzilla vs. Kong, I'm good.
The first one made like infinite money, right?
It did
very
okay.
well.
Okay, yeah.
Considering like it was a very nerfed project from what it was supposed to be. But the Monsterverse in general did very well for itself. And I love the Monsterverse. Like, I own them all. Like, I watched them all multiple times. They're fantastic. So anything more with the Monsterverse that doesn't just screw up things, yes, I'm good. Like,
I have not
as long as they don't bomb it.
I haven't seen Godzilla vs. Kong yet. I really need to, but I know I did like the first two Godzillas, so hopefully they keep that moving. And that's also, it's got its own just massive fan base too. So
with the whole like Toho fan base going there, it's like, yeah, they're gonna make money. They're never gonna be a full failure.
No, exactly.
I'll be in for Godzilla vs. Kong 2 as well. I did not like the first one too much, but their track record is solid. Godzilla and then Godzilla King of the Monsters, 2 out of 3 is pretty damn good. So you bet I'll be there for the second
Skull
one.
Island.
And Skull, yeah, you're right. That one was good too. Yeah, so damn, 3 out of 4.
Didn't that one also get a pretty nerfed release? Like they kind of, because didn't it come out like right at the start of COVID or something, and they like shut down a bunch of the screenings?
No, it came out beforehand.
Okay.
Godzilla vs. Kong was the one that was like right at the tail end of when theaters were opening back up.
That came out like in 2020, like summer, back when HBO Max was doing the whole like, it's in theaters, but it's also here.
Yeah, stream same day. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That does round out our news for this week. Now we head into the final portion of the show, which is the Broket block, the more personal side where you get to know Scott, Sam, and I a little bit better. So you guys, what have you been up to since you were last on? For example, Scott, and then you, Sam, if you have some extra stuff you wanted to bring up during, it's kind of the non-news related portion since it is the first episode you're on, and the Broket Core can get to know you a little bit better too.
So I guess I'll talk about, I've been watching a little bit of anime for the Ronin Council podcast. Go check that out from the Exiles Network. Shameless plug.
Absolutely, check it out.
So I am currently watching only 3 anime this season, at least like of the new seasonal stuff. The first being Black Summoner, which is a really cool one. Very much enjoying that series. It can have a little bit of divisive animation because they do use some 3D CG, and I think it looks pretty good. Not the best I've ever seen, but I think it works well to help the fights flow a lot better. But I can definitely see it being a divisive thing.
That one is on my watch list. Would you say the 3D is better or worse than So I'm a Spider, if you've seen that one?
It is better in my opinion.
Okay, cool.
And it's only used during some of the fight scenes so that the magic and stuff like that can actually flow into fights, and they can actually do it all better on their budget. But it's very good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
It's definitely on my watch list. It keeps popping up on Crunchyroll, so I added it, and it does seem super, super interesting.
I also have Devil as a Part-Timer Season 2.
Yeah.
I've been waiting almost a decade for this Season 2.
8 years.
So very excited for that, and I've been enjoying it. I am a little bit behind on it because of my vacation, but definitely highly recommend that series, both Season 1 and Season 2, if anyone hasn't seen it. Season 1 is, I think, only available on Funimation apps still.
I believe it's on Crunchyroll now, but I don't think all of the languages are available.
Crunchyroll's doing a weird thing with how they're getting some of the Funimation stuff, because they're doing it where even though it's older stuff, it's still weekly. So
right.
Season
that makes
1
sense.
is still releasing weekly on Crunchyroll, or you can watch the whole season on Funimation.
Okay, yeah. I remember when it was, I originally watched it on Hulu, and then I went to rewatch it, because that is one that I watched the English dub of, and I was like, where is it? It's gone.
Sorry for your soul. No, I've only ever watched it subbed, because I'm like, no, I'm good.
The English dub is, for that one, is not bad. I think the main thing with that series that people are looking for is the humor, and I think it conveys that pretty well. It's definitely watchable.
And the final one of the current season that I'm watching is the Prince of Tennis UC17 World Cup. It's a fantastic series if you like tennis. You can't start with Prince of Tennis UC World Series 17 World Cup, but you can. You're just going to be a little confused because it is very late in the series, but it is just tennis. So you don't really need to know all the intricacies of character development and stuff between them, because there's not that much.
Is this
my God.
Is this a continuation of the 2000 series, like early 2000s ones?
Yeah, you had the original Prince of Tennis, and then the manga when Prince of Tennis finished, it became Prince of Tennis 2, which was a sequel manga. And that it became the anime for New Prince of Tennis. And then this is a continuation of New Prince of Tennis.
Okay, so this is like the third or fourth in the series then, technically.
Yes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Verve only has access. You can, if you want to try and start from the beginning, the earliest you can start is episode 75 of the original series.
Jesus Christ. It's like trying to get into Hajime no Ippo.
Yeah, that is the earliest episode because for whatever reason, Crunchyroll doesn't have episodes 1 through 73
Yeah.
or 74. But again, unless you want to know like minor, like, oh, why is this character antagonistic to this person? Like, unless you care about that, you can still enjoy the tennis. And it's basically Dragon Ball Z with tennis.
Right. Yeah. It's like Kurokuro no Basket or something like that, where it's like, here's a real world thing, but absurd.
I mean, one of the movies that just came out, I haven't seen it yet, but involves while they were playing tennis, the ball warped space and time.
Yeah.
To send them into the past when it collided with the racket and shit. You have people destroying water towers with tennis balls. You do have one person that like adjusts space and time with it so that their ball hits like 0.1 second faster. Like, it's insane. It's so stupid and fun. And
I'm definitely going to check this out now based on your recommendation, because that is the only way I'll watch sports anime, is if it's so absurd you forget you're watching a sports anime.
Yeah, because in the manga and in the original Prince of Tennis, it slowly ramps up. Like, at the beginning, it's just kind of like, oh, he's really good, but it's mostly realistic tennis. And then it just starts going... It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z's power creep, where it just keeps getting more and more insane.
Yeah,
and you're just like,
time
okay,
gets on.
Sure. Like, they can do like volcanic shots with tennis balls, or slice a tennis ball in half with the racket.
I'm so here for that. That's really
actually pretty good, and they have some nice angle shots. The sound effects when they're hitting that ball is just great.
How's the voice acting?
It's really good. I only watch it subbed.
Yeah, that's what I assume.
Not that dubbed, but yeah, it's really good. I very much am enjoying it. It's one of my favorites from the season. Granted, all 3 are my favorites from the season since I'm only watching 3.
Fair enough, yeah.
One other series that I'm going to mention just because it's not from the season, but I have been watching it. City Hunter. Really fun series.
Oh, did that get a reboot?
So it got a new movie recently.
Oh,
but I've been watching the original 70s series.
Okay.
And very, very good. Highly recommend that, even though it does suffer from 70s anime censorship.
Yeah.
Of you can't show people getting shot, even though
that's one of the main focuses of the story.
So it's very interesting in that aspect, but very good. Highly recommend that series as well. It's super long though. So if anyone's wanting to get into that and wants to marathon a series, there's that, along with its spinoff Cat's Eye, which I did not know was a spinoff when I originally saw that.
How many episodes is the original series?
So season 1 of City Hunter is 75 episodes. Season 2 is about 60 episodes. Season 3 and 4, 12 episodes each. And then it just became movies after that.
Okay, yeah, it's a heavy investment, but it's definitely not anything abnormal either.
No. Once you get past, like I said, season 1 and 2, it basically becomes, for 2 seasons, a normal seasonal anime, and then just becomes movies afterwards. And they are all available on Verve/Crunchyroll. And you can also buy most of them physically, which is what I did.
Yeah.
Then I also want to plug Lazy Gaming Guys.
I love that on your last episode of Ronin Console, you're like, and of course, I'm on Lazy Gaming Guys, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm waiting for you to mention Reasons I'm Broke. Never came, but here
I'm in Discord. But no, I've been playing the new Saints Row reboot. It's not great.
You guys were streaming it, right?
Yeah, and then Bobby kept bitching the whole time.
Yeah,
so
that's what he was telling me.
Game.
He said you wouldn't change it because it was your favorite game franchise or something like that.
Oh no! So I tried changing it to the new SD Gundam because I'm like, well, that just came out, but I had to wait until midnight. It released the next day, so it released at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, I'm not changing games until midnight at least. And that's why I kept telling Bobby I'm like, no, we're playing this until midnight. And then when I went to SD Gundam, the entire game is a block scene, so you can't stream it.
Oh, that sucks.
So I'm like, well, I can't stream it.
Is that when you guys then did the Friday stream a few days later?
No, Julian, I guess he started up a stream because I'm like, well, I can't stream this, and like the only other game I'm playing right now is Saints Row. So
Gotcha.
he was like, okay, well, I'll stream. And then I guess he fell asleep almost immediately after he started stream.
Wow.
That's why they did like the Friday thing, but I was busy. So, but yeah, the new Saints Row, it's not very good. Like,
That's a shame.
I recommend the other games in the series way more. Like, a lot of the characters are just very bland. They have like one personality thing, and the game tries to remind you about that personality thing all the time. It's just not good. The gameplay is really fun. Like, it feels like classic Saints Row. It's really responsive, really fun. And the overworld, like the actual open world, is really expansive and fun, but the story sucks. And the character faces are disturbing. Like my custom character face, I'm not amazing with the character editor to be like fully detailed. So I was just like, oh, let me go with some presets. I'm like, my God, these presets are all nightmare fuel.
It's a Rob Liefeld set.
Seriously. I'm like, every one of them just looks like some weird looking dude. It's very strange. I had to get a helmet for my character almost immediately. I'm like, please, let me find something to just cover up this atrocity.
That's too bad, man. Because is it still made by Rockstar? Was it Rockstar ever?
Oh, so it's Volition.
Okay.
It's the one making. And it was still made by Volition, but I'm hoping they fix a lot of these issues in a sequel to this. Like, if I don't see that they fixed a lot of these issues in like trailers and stuff for a sequel, I'm going to be avoiding the second one. I only gave this one a shot because I love the Saints Row series.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, because the only other thing I've been excited about is the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection came out yesterday randomly.
Yeah, I just got mine in. Yeah.
I was just going to ask if you picked it up, Daniel.
Yeah, so I need to buy it, but I have to wait until payday before I can buy it because I'm a little broke right now. So
yeah, reasons you're broke.
Reasons you're broke, Ninja Turtles.
Reasons I'm broke currently because of the Saints Row reboot last week that I bought. But and Gundam Battle Alliance and Shin Megami Tensei Soul Hackers 2. They all decided to come out.
Yeah, Scott. Have you played through Soul Hackers yet, or you're too?
The original? No, it's sitting on my 3DS shelf.
I meant 2.
2? No,
okay.
I haven't even touched it. I have too many other games because 3 games came out in 1 week, and then I still haven't finished Digimon Survive that came out like 2 weeks or before. And then I still have the Cowabunga collection just came out this week. The Pac-Man World reboot came out last week too, and I'm like, well, I can't buy that right now. I can't justify that with like all these games on my backlog. And then what is it? Next week, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R comes out. I've already got that pre-ordered. So I'm like, nah, there's too many games coming out right this minute. Like, I haven't finished squat, and I don't have time to invest in Soul Hackers 2 currently.
Well, it's
SD Gundam Battle Alliance first.
Yeah, it sucks too because, like you were saying before, with waiting a year until like definitive editions come out, you shell out a bunch of money for a game now, and then with Soul Hackers, literally they're like, all right, day one $40 DLC, which people lost their minds about. So
see, I bought the $90 like digital deluxe.
There you go.
I was like, I will buy everything. Just your SMT. It's Shin Megami Tensei.
Yeah.
Where's the season pass thing? Yeah, give me that and this. I did the same thing with SD Gundam Battle Alliance. I'm like, it's Gundam. Yep. All right. Where's the thing that gets me everything? All right, cool.
Did you get a plushie with it though, or a statue?
No, it's all digital. So
okay. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Remember all these games, Sam? Because I got to ask Max, who's like our coworker's like anime gaming fan that reminds me a lot of Scott. And I'm like, I wonder if he likes all the same games. We're trying because all weebs like the same stuff. So far everything has hit.
That is our go-to phrase at work is, do you like this thing? Yeah, most weebs do. Yeah, it's funny, Scott. I was actually going to ask you what what your top 3 seasonal anime were, and then you just threw that information out willingly, so that made it a lot easier for me.
Yeah, normally I watch a lot more seasonal stuff, but last season I ended up just dropping some series because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
And so I kind of cut down for this season. Wasn't as much coming out this season that I cared about.
It's very slow. I'm also obviously checking out Devil is a Part-Timer season 2 because much like you, I waited almost a decade for it to the part where I think most of us had accepted that was never going to happen. And then I'm also checking out a new one called Parallel World Pharmacy. So for anyone that's looking for some like really light fare that's really good, it's an isekai, but it's all related to a medicine practitioner, so it's definitely a different setting. And then obviously, like everybody else and their mother, I am patiently awaiting for Spy Family Part 2. I guess I don't know if it's season 2. It's weird how it's released.
2, which is basically just the second half of season 1.
Right.
So they pulled a Netflix.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Some series do this, and I don't know why. Most of the time when they have the 2 cores, they play them simultaneously, like one back to back, and it just makes a 24 episode season. But occasionally they're like, hey, here's 12 episodes, and then later, here's another 12 episodes.
With Spy Family, it's not quite as jarring because all the material they've covered so far is like mostly pretty episodic. Like there's some long running plot threads, but there's no like highly.
I mean, the series never really has any long running plot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm reading the manga as well, and so far it is a very faithful adaptation. They moved around
I
one or two
wish
things.
they had added Bond as the final episode of season 1.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, I think the reason they didn't do that is they're probably gonna draw that out a little bit and they wanted to wait for the first episode of the following season. But I definitely agree with you because they moved the aquarium stuff to the end of the season when in the manga that happens quite a bit later on. So I think that was their game plan was, oh, let's save this big like life event for the quote unquote family for the first episode of our next season.
Yeah.
Before I touch more on what Sam has been watching, because I know, Sam, you got to bounce in about 10 minutes for work.
Yeah.
Scott, I know.
I agree.
Scott, have you still been reading My Hero Academia? Is that over yet?
Yeah, I am still caught up because it's like a train wreck. I'm not going to like, I'm already disinvested that I'm in the final arc. I might as well keep going. It's crap.
Why do you
garbage?
Why do you spend the time
why
on
is it so bad?
Am I allowed to spoiler things?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's up to Sam, I guess. Spoiler alert.
Oh, I don't care. Yeah, as long as your viewers aren't going to get upset, I don't give a shit.
This is their warning.
Cool.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning, everyone. They tried to do like a character death with Bakugo.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then, of course, 2 chapters later, it's like, reversed it. We're going to reverse it. He's going to be alive again. And it's like, oh, yeah, like you can't even try and actually bring drama to the situation. Because number 1, you're trying to do a character death way too late in the series. Number 2, you're even going to reverse it and bitch out of it instead of going, oh, well, yeah, we actually, like, we had the balls to kill off a main character. It's like, no, we'll kill off a few side characters that no one cares about. But a main character, no, they can't die. Like, they have plot armor.
Yeah, I can definitely.
They have a guy that's becoming Bakugo's heart, and I'm still not sure how that works, whether the heart's now sentient, whether the guy has to keep alive inside Bakugo to keep pumping blood, or whether I'm very confused by it.
Well, they read Chainsaw Man, so they were like, that worked in there, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. And then also the main villain finally gave his reasonings for crap, like for being evil. And it's one of those situations where they talk as if they have something to say, and the writer wanted to write something like thought-provoking, but sucks.
Yeah.
Because essentially he's like, oh, why do I do things? Well, or like, what is a villain? And the characters like, someone that does evil. And he's like, oh, but what is evil? With all the cultures of the world, like, how can you truly say that what I'm doing is evil and everything else? And then it's like,
So it's
he
Stain Part
says it
2.
in a very confused way. Here's the exact wording, because it's so word soup.
I mean, I feel like they've already done that in the series, right? With Stain, like the whole like
Stain was a really well done one, though.
This is
He
just
had
worse.
He had a particular version of what a hero was like, and hated
Right.
it wasn't that.
Well, if you've read My Hero Vigilantes, then you get a little more view into that also, to where you see some of his background as to, you're like, oh, he's interacted with heroes before, and he was involved in that community. So
his whole villain thing is that in a world teeming with cultures and values, bad stuff would be an act that universally makes the masses turn up their nose in disgust, an act that thwarts the future they envision. So I intend to thwart the future of the world.
He actually used the phrase "bad things."
Yes, that's what they use. They use the phrase "bad things."
Well,
it's just word soup that's supposed to sound profound, but when you really think about it, you're like, that doesn't really make sense.
I feel like this is falling into the typical trap of like long-running manga, where when you have so many plot threads going with so many characters, because My Hero has a large cast, it's very hard to tie anything up in a satisfying way after it's been drawn out for so long. So I think that's definitely what they're running
when
into.
the writer sucks.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, the early chapters of My Hero, I thought were
My Hero Academia, when I stopped caring, was after they rescued Eri.
Yeah.
Because after they rescued Eri, they spun their wheels for about 3 arcs and then just decided, like, oh, shit's going to hit the fan, and then ending. Like, now we're going to get into final arc. And it's just like, wait, what?
Like, you, along with a lot of other people, are I'm assuming reading it hoping that they'll turn it around. And
no, God, no. I'm just trying to see where it ends. Like, I've invested too much time into it at this point. So I'm like, all right.
So let's invest more.
Let's invest more, baby.
It's 1 chapter a week. Like, it takes about 3 minutes to read. I'm bored during work at break.
Yeah. I'm guessing you're reading it on the Shonen Jump app.
Yeah. I read it.
Yeah, so at least you have the advantage of you could just pull it up as opposed to having to actually pay for the volumes or anything. So that's one saving grace, I guess.
That is the only reason I'm still reading it, is I'm like, I need something to read at work, and that's work safe. So
have you read Sakamoto Days yet?
I've been reading that since it originally launched.
Oh, okay. I
actually own the first volume physically. So
yeah, I was gonna say, if you want something better to read in your off time, there are things on there.
I read almost everything that comes out weekly except for like 3 shit series.
Which are?
Elusive Samurai.
Oh yeah, I saw that one pop up and I was like, that's not for me.
Witch Watch.
Okay, is that like Yokai Watch but with witches?
No, it's really stupid. Like, this chick is supposed to be protecting this kid or whatever, and he has a watch or something that summons her, and she just sucks at protecting things.
Okay.
It's stupid.
Might get canceled.
High School Family, Kokosei. That shit
I've heard
on for 99 chapters now, and it's not stopping, and I need it to stop. Because the entire joke is that this kid gets into high school, and so does his whole family, including like the cat. And that's the joke. And it
sounds
just goes
charming.
on for 99 chapters.
Yeah, it sounds charming. I don't know. I might check this one out.
And then there's Me and Roboco, which I'm like, that's shit. I'm not reading that.
What is that one?
It's about some dude and some kid and his robot mate. And that's it. It's just a comedy gag series.
That's pretty typical. We don't have anything to make, so let's go ahead and crank it out type of manga. Yeah.
One of the lesser known series that I highly recommend is Akane Banashi.
What is that one?
It is a Rakugo series. Rakugo is, for anyone that doesn't know, a traditional Japanese comedy form, like art form, where one person kind of plays all the parts of and kind of just sits there and does things with vocal animation and things of that nature, facial animations. It's really interesting. I don't like Rakugo normally, but the manga is very good, very well written, and so far has had the praise of Oda and the creator of Evangelion, like saying you
Oh,
should read
nice.
this series because it's that good. And one thing they just did recently in the manga, without spoilers, because I don't want to spoil this series, it is that they tied things back to the beginning of the series, like the first few chapters, to
Oh,
make you see something in a new light using knowledge you've gained and the character has gained by making them now look at something in a new light. You also are looking at it in a new light and realizing, crap, someone was right. Like, like this
Snape is
character
not
you
evil.
didn't, yeah, this character you didn't like is actually correct.
that's always interesting when it's done competently.
Yeah,
Because
and-
I feel like a lot of anime and manga try to do that, and then it just comes off as very contrived.
Yeah, and this works very well, partly because of the reduced severity of the setting. Like, it's not life or death, it's not complex moral situations. It's more simple, but it works very efficiently because of that. Like, you actually have learned things about stuff, and you're like, oh, yeah, looking back, I can see their point. Like, they made sure that you would react the way they wanted you to
Right.
at the beginning, and that you would, as you learn and gain knowledge, you're like, oh yeah, this person's correct.
Have you checked out Comey Can't Communicate, Scott?
I have, and I
Wasn't for you.
boring. Like,
It takes a while to set up a lot of the characters. I'm not the biggest. By biggest, I mean I never watch Slice of Life or a lot of comedy stuff, but the characters do grow on you, and it's pretty cute. And it does a similar thing where it's like telling you the same events through multiple character perspectives later on. And with that one, it's not so much about somebody being right. It's more like, this is why this character behaves like this, because to them, things appear very differently than to other characters, because they all have like various social hangups.
Well, I know, Sam, you got to bounce here in a minute.
Yeah.
So go ahead and share to the Brocat Core. If you have, I know you're not big on social media, but if they want to contact you, is there any form of anything that they can contact you on in case someone wants to keep talking anime?
Yeah, definitely. On Instagram, my Instagram handle is just my first and last name. So Samuel Boylston, spelled Boylston. Also, you can hit me up on Facebook, Sam Boylston on there also. I'm also on most dating apps. No, I'm kidding. Those are all deactivated. But yeah, those are the best ways to hit me up. And, you know, any time anyone wants to talk about anything, I'm more than happy to give recommendations, hopefully without upsetting anyone too much. Because, you know, sometimes, as you like to say, the weebs tend to get upset about certain things. But I try not to just poke fun at people too much, but I am a little bit trolly.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Sam, for being on and talking anime with and DC stuff with Scott and I. So I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in about a little over an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, you guys. And Scott, it was awesome talking with you. Hopefully next time I'll have a little bit more time and we can get into it for a little longer.
that'd be cool.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. And then on my end, it's just Scott and I for the remainder of this little bit of the end of the Brocat block. I mentioned that I've got the Cowabunga collection. The one thing I will mention on the Brocat block that I've been making progress on, I think I talked about it 2 weeks ago that I started this book, but it's called True Believers, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee. And I pre-ordered the novel, and it talks about, the synopsis is basically telling us what he did that was and was not true. And I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. It's a whole autobiography about his life, but it also corrects all the things that he said. They're like, in this interview, he said this, and then in 1996, he contradicted himself and he said this. However, according to his brother and to this person and this person, so this guy, the author's name is Abraham. I don't have his last name handy, but he goes and pretty much says, here's everyone's account of things compared to Stan's, and these people are all saying the same thing. So Stan is probably exaggerating or lying. So, and it does that for his whole life. And I'm like, God damn. So now I'm like to the juicy stuff that I only wanted to read it for the Jack Kirby stuff. So that's where Jack Kirby is like, I invented Thor, I invented Hulk, I invented Captain America, I helped invent Spider-Man to an extent. Here's how he he like Stanley used to annoy him because when he got hired, he was literally a kid. He was like 16 or something, working at Timely Comics. And Stan would like play a flute or a whistle constantly in the office while Jack was trying to draw and write stuff. And he's like, his quote is, someday I'm going to kill that kid." So they didn't get off on the right foot. And then later on, Stan literally robbed him, like wouldn't credit him in books, kept paychecks from him, only gave him artist credit, so he only received the artist paycheck. And it's fascinating, man. It's just interesting seeing the different accounts on these superheroes that Disney is making billions off of. And the book says, look, if Stan was lying about these things, there's billions at stake. Like a lot of money that could go to the Kirby and the Steve Ditko family.
Well, yeah, because it's like suddenly, oh, well, the rights were shared rights, and stuff like that, which means you had to buy from both partners.
And one of the themes I've seen is when they interview Stan on how'd you come up with Spider-Man, and his ideas are always like out of nowhere. He's like, one day I was watching a fly crawl on a wall, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if a man could also climb on a wall? And I thought, Fly Man, no, that's no good. How about Spider-Man? That sounds great. And it's always that exact story for every hero he supposedly created. Whereas Jack Kirby's is, well, at the time we were copying a lot of horror film icons. So Frankenstein monster came from the Hulk. We just tried to make a handsome Frankenstein monster. And it's like, yeah, one of these accounts sounds more accurate.
Yeah, one of these accounts sounds in the real world, and the other one is kind of like, yeah, you're just telling a story because it sounds like a fun story.
Yes.
As to how you came up with this. Like, it's not an actual accurate account. It's just an exaggerated, like, hey, this is what happened. True believers.
Right. And that's one of, like, for the Hulk, like we heard Kirby's, and for the Hulk, he's like, we just needed a monster, a big superhero, because the Thing was so popular. And I thought, we need something huge, something that's hulking, something that, wait a minute, the Hulkling. That sounds great. We'll make the Hulk. It's like, Stan, this doesn't make sense.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's not how it happened, like, at all. Like,
and so it's been fascinating, man. I've been liking that read. It's been good. And one of my coworkers did bring up, like what you were saying, that it's a little exaggerated. So my coworker was like, he probably at this point of his life in the 90s and the 2000s is like, I'm in too deep. Like, now he better just roll with it. At that point of, like, at first it was like in the early interviews, he would give Jack some credit, not in pay, but in interviews, like, Jack writes more than I do. But then later on, he'd be like, no, Jack only drew things. So he kind of had to stick to that revisionist history because there's a lot of fucking money at stake, even while he was still alive.
Well, yeah. Like, once it took off fully, it's kind of like, okay, there is a lot of money, and does he want to share that, And it's kind of sad to see in a way, because I don't think that part we'll ever know the truth on.
Yes, and that's one thing that the book says, that they will probably never accurately settle the rights to these characters. They'll probably just remain as they are right now with Disney.
Yeah, because with Stan Lee being dead, you only have one side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jack Kirby's passed
for an argument. Oh yeah. So even then, like, you have either side. So
exactly.
with Stan Lee still around, it was only the one side, and then now that they're both, it's kind of like, okay, well, it's all hearsay from what they may have told family or things of that. Like, and even then, one's going to tell their family, no, he had no help or didn't help make it at all. The other one's going to go, yes, he did. And who knows? The only people that knew were dead. Like,
right. And he did interview Stan's brother for a lot of this, who was there and worked at Marvel. He had a job there too. So he's still around, but he better, he's got a Mickey shaped, what do you call it? A sniper symbol thing on his forehead. Yeah. Like, you better keep your mouth shut.
You want that money, right?
Well, I don't know if he's getting any. I think it's all his daughter, which the book does say his daughter is pretty messed up and is very money hungry and spends Stan's money quite a bit today. So now I'll finish it eventually, but I'm almost halfway through. It's good stuff. If you want to kind of see all sides of the Marvel characters, again, the book's called True Believers: The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee. But outside of that, Scott, was there anything else you wanted to cover before we give your plugs for LGG and Ronin console?
That's like the anime and games I've been playing.
Oh,
And then-
please tell me about your vacation, because you mentioned that and I wanted to ask you about it.
Oh yeah, it was fun. It was a very nice cruise.
You went on a Disney cruise, right?
Yep. And then I didn't bother getting off the ship except for at the private island, mostly because I had already been to the other places like a few times. So I'm like, do I need to see Cozumel? Not really. Do I need to see Falmouth, Jamaica? Not really. St. Thomas I didn't go to or whatever Grand Cayman I didn't go to. Because I'm like, I don't want to tender over. I hate the tendering process.
Yeah.
Like it's just inconvenient. So I just didn't bother. But overall, it was really nice. I had some great food. It was relaxing. Just kind of read some books while listening to the ocean and enjoying the sea breeze. So very, very relaxing time for me and the family. My parents went out and explored different places, but I was like, no, I've got a movie theater and stuff. I did watch a few movies. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh boy.
Because I figured, well, it's free. And like, I'll go ahead and watch it. That was terrible.
So
Like,
you and Bobby didn't like that one.
no. And I'll say it here, like, the people that say it's horror, I guess you just don't know much about horror. Like, you think anything with a jump scare is horror.
Well, you got to remember, this
Like-
is scary for these MCU adults.
Because, like, there were times where he, I think, was trying to make horror, but was reined back in by
Gotcha.
this. Like, there's a lot of spots where you could see Raimi was trying to really do something with some camera angles or the way a character's presented with the lighting and stuff to make it seem horrorish, but at the same time, it's suddenly almost like the legs are chopped out from under it, under the scene.
Mhm.
To kind of be like, oh, well, it has to be immediately undercut by something else or things of that nature. And it's just kind of like, yeah, I think Raimi was trying to do something and then was told, like, no, you can't have it that dark.
Yeah, it's got to fit the cookie cutter MCU.
Yeah, like the darkest thing in the movie is, I guess, the Illuminati scenes where, like, the one dude gets his brain blown out.
Yeah, I've seen that GIF, that clip of it.
But at the same time, like, that's the darkest thing. And in all honesty, what I found more disturbing was in Shazam when the people are locked in with the
Oh, yeah.
like the monsters or whatever and are getting eaten in that boardroom. Like, that was actually more horror than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I found that scene specifically in that movie more disturbing than anything I saw in Multiverse of Madness. Everything I saw in that was more like, yeah, it's comic book. Like, it's comic book. But yeah, I wouldn't watch that. It was boring. Like, even for free, I didn't watch Thor Love and Thunder.
Waita Taikiti's not coming back for Thor 5. I don't know if you heard about that.
Good. Like they finally grew some sense there. It's like, wow, this didn't do well. Maybe we
Fucking
shouldn't
morons.
bring this idiot back. I did watch Lightyear as well. That was surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I know it underperformed, and I don't see them doing any more that kind of spin-off, but you said it was better than you expected?
Yeah, it was honestly better than I expected. It had some decent jokes and a decent plot that I don't know if you've heard of the game Outriders.
Yes.
It was like a kid's version of Outriders.
Okay.
There's some time travel and stuff in there, and it was really good. Like, not the best movie I've ever seen, but pretty good. I watched Toy Story 4, so I finally have now watched every Pixar movie ever made.
There you go.
Toy Story 4, my hot take is that it's better than Toy Story 2, because any of the 3 sequels suck anyway, but this one was more watchable to me than Toy Story 2 or 3.
I'm assuming you think 2 was the best sequel until you saw 4.
I think 2 is the worst, actually.
Oh, but it's got Newman in it.
That's the best part of it. Like, the actual plot, I just find so dull.
I got to find a way to put
there's
that
some-
character into the Newman cinematic universe.
Well, he was just a doll, or like a toy. So Newman played the voice of the prospector in the show.
No, he was the toy collector guy. That was like,
Okay.
I got to go all the way to work.
So there you go. he just collected toys for a phase. He was Big Al.
Done.
But yeah, Julian hates my take on Toy Story 4. I'm like, it's decent. The only thing I have an issue with is that the villain doesn't get any comeuppance at all. Like, they just kind of win.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad movie. It's just kind of dull. Yeah, that was pretty much what I did on that cruise. They had Chippendale Rescue Rangers playing in the theater, but I didn't get a chance to go see it.
I still got to see that one. Yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah.
Batman versus
the other
ET.
movie they had was some kind of like NBA documentary called Rise.
I haven't heard of that one. If it was The Last Dance, holy shit. That's
if it was The Last Dance, I'd go watch it, but like I would have watched it. But Rise, it was like about a family that had like 3 NBA championship players in it or something. Like, nah, I'm good. I don't really care. Like, it's nice that it's there, but I'm good.
Well, I'm happy you had a good vacation and a good cruise. I know the Disney cruises are Kelly and I's favorite as far as when it comes to food, when it comes to service, and followed by Royal Caribbean right after that. But it's just Disney cruises are the most expensive of the ones we've been on. So usually we go on Royal, which is middle price, middle service, middle food. So it's kind of like know if it's our budget.
That's pretty much it. Like, it's not the worst, but it's not the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to Carnival and it's just bad.
Yeah, fuck our. We've never been on that one. No way. Even we know better.
Yeah.
They're a joke to other cruise liners. Like, to the comedians on the Disney cruise and on Royal Caribbean, they make fun of Carnival all the time.
Yeah. Like, and how could you not, though? Like, they're so bad. Like, anytime that there's, a disease sweeping a ship, it's Carnival. Anytime, like, their ships get stuck out in the ocean because they lose power, it's Carnival. Like,
the rowdy people on board, something happens every time.
People fall overboard all the time, it's Carnival.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, they're not good at all.
Well, good stuff, man. I'm glad you were able to be on with I know your schedule is a little bit different when it comes to mornings, so I know you're not running on a whole lot of sleep. It's pretty early for you when it comes to Scott, but I appreciate you being on and able to do this episode today.
Yeah, it's always fun, so I had to work around it, but, a little less sleep today's no issue.
And I know you mentioned LGG and Ronin Console, but go ahead and please plug them once again before we sign off and let them know where they can find you.
So you can find me on LGG at Lazy Gaming Guys on Twitter. And that has kind of all of our links for our YouTube channel, the Discord, all that fun stuff. You can also check me out on the Ronin Council podcast. I know that is also on Twitter at the Ronin Council, along with the Exiles Network. You can find it through there. And that is on, I think, Spotify through the Exiles Network. But it's on the Ronin Council Twitter. You can find all of the links. And I think it's also on the Exile Network Twitter. You can find all the links because it's through them. So then you can always find me on the Discord of the Reasons I'm Broke. I'm at Pandanime, and I'm also Pandanime on Twitter. So yeah, you can check me out any of those places.
And as always, there will be links to everywhere you can find Scott and I in the description of today's episode. In case you know someone that is into Warner Brothers Discovery, DC anime news, please tell a friend about the show, because word of mouth is most effective in podcast growth. So we would really appreciate that 5-second recommendation. If you think you know someone that may enjoy some of the stuff that we discussed on today's episode, please let them know. Thank you so much once again, Scott and Sam, for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, and Brocat Core, all will be well. So we've gotten Mechagodzilla already in Kong vs. Godzilla. We've gotten King Ghidorah, Monster Zero. Is the next villain going to be Mecha Ghidorah? Are we going to get Destroya? Or do you think it'll be someone completely different?
I don't think it'll be Destroya yet. Like, that's got to be a little bit farther in, right?
Final boss?
Like, yeah.
When you kill off Godzilla, you do Destroya.
Yeah. I think Mecha Ghidorah would be the best one. Because even like lore-wise, they could bring it up with the whole fact of the head and the body parts and stuff like that. So they already have like pieces of Ghidorah that they could then kind of replicate the the body of,
Hmm.
and that whole psychic link thing. So you could even have Ghidorah controlling Mecha Ghidorah. I would love to see Mecha Ghidorah the most out of that. Like you go from Mecha Godzilla to Mecha Ghidorah.
And that's what I thought was going to happen in this one, where they were like, he's linked to. I don't know if it was one of the plots originally. I got to pull out that issue of G-Fan, but it's like, all right, there's some of King Ghidorah who we know replicates through cells. It is self-healing, but there's some of that in Mecha Godzilla. You almost expected at some point in the fight to have a Ghidorah overrun the Mecha Godzilla body or whatever, and have him burst out of the Mecha Godzilla body, and it's like, holy shit, like have a head or two pop out, and that's like their version of Mecha Ghidorah at the end or something.
Like Mecha Godzilla, like the parts just start regenerating into the form of Ghidorah.
There you go.
Or to your point, like parts of the actual Ghidorah start popping out. So like the wings pop out, and maybe like two of the heads, and the third head is just the Mecha Godzilla head, like the middle one, and the two pop out on the side. To kind of be like, yeah, it's a combination of the two. Like Ghidorah's combining with Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, just have a line thrown in of it's fusing with the metal. That alien is something we can't comprehend. I don't know, whatever they fucking want to say. Their biology, It truly is a monster. There you go.
Yes, there you go. It truly is a king of the monsters.